Today we're going to be reviewing another old school bodybuilding plan by Arnold Schwarzenegger. This one specifically promoted for beginners, and that is Arnold's Golden 6 training plan. Now, this being a basic full body routine, it's a huge contrast to his crazy 6 day per week double split program. But if you've watched any of my other training videos, then you know Arnold also promoted another full body system in a program called How to Gain Muscular Weight and Massiveness. This Golden 6 workout is also a full body system, but it's even more basic than that program. Quickly looking at this program, you'll notice it's very bare bones, which is great for beginners, but there's actually many ways to adapt the system for intermediates and even advanced lifters. I'll first review the entire program as it's written, and I'll break down what I feel is best for the beginner, and then I'll go into full detail about what I would personally change once you're an intermediate or an advanced lifter. So let's dive into the program, and I'll give you the full workout as well as the pros and cons and my own recommendations. So this Golden 6 workout is literally 6 exercises that make up the entire program, done Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. They are in this order: the squat, the bench press, pull-ups, behind the neck press, barbell curls, and crunches. I'm a huge fan of this setup for beginners, and while many people say full body workouts are great because it's just 3 workouts per week, the reason it shines in my opinion is the equal work to rest ratio. You're literally taking a full day of rest after and before every single training session. And my personal favorite way to run full body sessions, if you have the schedule that will allow it, would be to continuously train every other day, which would basically mean you would alternate your days in the gym each week, taking a day on and a day off to train. But for now, let's get to the sets and reps of the program. So the squats are to be done for 4 sets of 10 repetitions, bench press done for 3 sets of 10 repetitions, pull-ups done for 3 sets of as many reps as possible, behind the neck press 4 sets of 10 reps, barbell curls 3 sets of 10 reps, and crunches done for 3 sets of as many reps as possible. So now that we have the entire program, I'm going to review a few key topics for the beginner first. These are going to be exercise selection, volume, rep range, and frequency. So starting with the first movement, the squat, we have the basic bread and butter lower body exercise, and the squats make up the entire leg portion of this program. For beginners, I'm 100% for this, and I think there's little reason to add any other variation. The squats are going to primarily train the quads, but you'll also get the secondary work to the glutes, hamstrings, back, and many other supporting muscles. The same holds true for the second exercise with the bench press, primarily a pec movement, but obviously hitting the front delts and the triceps. For exercise 3 with the pull-ups, the same thing applies. While upper back is the primary muscles used, the lats, lower traps, rear delts, and the biceps are all incorporated in the movement as well. Now those 3 movements alone are going to train the entire body. And in fact, if you wanted to be super abbreviated with this program and you wanted to come up with a Golden 3 workout, that's probably what I recommend you start with at the bare minimum. But now, going into the 4th exercise with the behind the neck press, we're getting a little bit too press dominant in my opinion. I understand the idea of putting this movement in the program to work the front delts directly. Since pull-ups are done for back and bench is done for chest, naturally a shoulder movement should be in there, right? Well, 2 things I have an issue with here. 1, the front delts are heavily involved in any pressing movement. For many people, if we're doing enough pressing volume on chest, I'd actually limit front delt work. And then I'd mostly focus on the lateral raises for the side delts in training. But more important than that, there's a huge discrepancy between pressing and pulling volume on this program. We're literally doing 1 pulling movement for the upper body, and now we have 2 pressing movements. This is almost a sure way to develop muscle imbalances, especially in beginners. And personally, I'd either add in something like a face pull to balance this program out, or I'd even pull out the behind the neck press out completely. Now, once I get into what I would do for intermediates or advanced lifters, I'll go over that in more detail. But first, moving on to the barbell curls, this movement is obviously for direct arm work. And you'll always hear people claim that beginners don't need direct arm work, that pulls and presses are enough. But in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with adding in direct arms to any training program. The reason is biceps and triceps are so minimally taxing on the nervous system, 3 sets of curls is not going to negatively impact any training program. And in a program like this, I only see it benefiting you by helping you grow larger biceps. So in my opinion, I'm all for them. And then finally, abs for 3 sets of as many reps as possible. Personally, if your goal is physique and aesthetics, if you're squatting heavy, using your stabilizer muscles in lower body movements as well as upper body exercises like pull-ups and presses, in my opinion, direct core work is not needed. However, similar to my argument about biceps, a few sets of crunches here will not hurt, and by doing them, it can only help your physique. My stance on the crunches in this program is that they should be completely optional. All right, so let's move on to volume. Most exercises are done for 3 to 4 sets on this program. Now keep in mind, since this workout is done 3 days per week, that would be a total weekly volume of 9 to 12 sets per muscle group. I'm totally fine with that weekly volume for the beginner. But looking deeper, there's a couple of things that I would be cautious of. 12 sets per week of squats exclusively causes more demand on the recovery system than what I feel is needed for growth, especially in beginners and intermediate lifters. For more advanced lifters, this might be a necessary trade-off because more stimulus is needed. But for guys who are not that strong yet, you'll get just as much growth stimulus out of half the volume by doing only 2 to 3 sets per workout and a total of 6 to 9 weekly sets. This all comes without the excessive fatigue and wear and tear from the higher volumes. For things like presses and pull-ups, you can get away with the higher volumes at this stage, but again, it might not be necessary depending on where you're at. Overall, for the beginner or intermediate, you want to do the minimum amount of volume needed to stimulate growth, while also keeping recovery in check. For most, 12 or under weekly sets, provided they're not all extremely taxing movements like squats and deadlifts, is generally a solid place to be. Now, onto the rep ranges for the beginner and intermediate. All exercises on this program will be done for 10 reps or as many reps as possible. Now, first off, as a general rule of thumb, for muscle gain, the best rep ranges to train is anywhere from 5 repetitions all the way up to 20. Again, this is for the majority of training. And there are different reasons to go higher or lower or even break these rules altogether. But for the beginner, on highly technical lifts such as squats and deadlifts and even presses, I'm personally a huge fan of keeping these movements in the lower rep ranges of 5 to 8. This encourages solid technique, which is something that's still being built during these early stages, by keeping the set as short as possible. While 10 reps is not high by any means, on something like squats, which is very taxing on the cardiovascular system, 10 solid reps will impact your breathing just as much as the quads. And in my opinion, it's not the most optimal way to train, especially in the early stages of bodybuilding. What I would personally recommend here is to open up those rep ranges to 5 to 10 repetitions on these movements. And I would even go for a larger rep range for advanced lifters, which again, we'll touch on in a few minutes. But first, the last topic for the beginner, and that's frequency. Again, every other day lifting is something that I'm a huge fan of for anyone. A great work to rest ratio, and the fact that it's full body also allows for a very high frequency of muscles being worked. Stimulating the entire body every 48 hours, except for on the weekends, is in my opinion one of the best ways to grow as fast as possible, provided that recovery is in check. I would say based on your schedule, if you could ride out the frequency of every other day throughout the weekends, you would get more training session in throughout the weeks. This will rack up over the months and years, and again, provided your recovery is in check, you're gonna build muscle faster. So to wrap that up for the beginner, I think the base of the program is solid, and if you wanted to run it exactly as written, you should see solid results. Once you become intermediate or advanced, there's definitely things you'll need to change for continual progression. Basic programs like these are often run by beginners, and once progress stalls, they assume they need to switch to a lower frequency bro-style split. In many cases, this is actually the last option that I'd recommend. For advanced lifters, there's 2 major things you would need to address. First, recovery, both locally to the muscles as well as nervous system fatigue, due to increased strength and more muscle damage you're able to produce as a stronger lifter. And second is the need for increased volume and exercise selection. So as you can see, the more advanced you get, the more you need to create a higher stimulus for growth. But simultaneously, you'll also need to manage fatigue as you're generating much more of it. On this type of program, there's 2 ways to accomplish this. First would be rotating exercises. If you go back to the original template, which would be squats on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we could easily fix this by keeping the barbell squat on Monday, then come Wednesday, we'll do much more of a quad dominant squat variation, like a front squat. And then come Friday, we'll hit a squat variation such as a hack squat, which is less demanding on the lower back. Now we still have the same weekly squat frequency, but now we have less systemic fatigue by changing the movement patterns, as well as less wear and tear by not doing the same movement so often. Taking it a step further, we could also improve recovery as well as getting a greater growth effect by focusing on both the fast twitch and the slow twitch muscle fibers by varying rep ranges each session. For example, we can train the barbell squat on Monday with sets of 5, which will work the fast twitch muscle fibers, and then on Wednesday, we could train the front squats in the 10 to 12 rep range by starting to focus more on the slow twitch dominant fibers. And then on Friday, using a movement that doesn't require a lot of stabilization, we could target the 15 to 20 rep range. This allows you to train the muscle through multiple movements and rep ranges, all with the appropriate exercises while getting the benefits of variation as well as increased recovery. This can and should be done with all movements on this program if you're an intermediate and an advanced lifter. And then finally, the last step would be to increase the volume for body parts that need to be focused on, and simultaneously decrease the volume for muscles that you want to train at maintenance. For guys who are press dominant, lowering the weekly volume from 12 sets to 8 to 10 frees up recovery and volume that you could use to add to your pulling movements. By taking 4 sets away from chest pressing and placing the additional 4 on back, you now have more emphasis on pulling, but not creating more fatigue caused by excessive training. Remember, the volume is the same. While all of this can start to get very complicated, this is why more advanced lifters should always be training with a custom plan. You can, however, use these recommendations from the video and make Arnold's Golden 6 workout fit your needs. If you personally run this program, comment down below with your results. And if you want to build your physique using old school bodybuilding training methods, check out my Mass Gain program in the description. Or if you want to work with me directly, get your custom program below. Alright guys, that's it for the video. If you want to see more of the best original bodybuilding content just like this, make sure to hit subscribe.